Alright, so right out of the gate, we're just gonna, in these first couple of videos, is just walk through some of this documentation at LangChain. I just think it's a good way to get familiar with what's going on and how to get things kind of set up. So the very first thing that we should do is import the large language model from OpenAI, and that's this bit of code here. So we'll go back to our editor, open our main file here and just paste that in. Go back and grab that. And I'll walk through this here once we get this stuff going on here. So it's just this little bit of code, right? So what's happening is, as I said, we're importing the model here, and we're assigning it to this variable. This temperature here, they talk about this right here in the top. So the higher that number is, the more random the response is going to be. So if you're iterating over documents or something, serious, you want that to probably be set to like 0, okay? But if you're doing something more creative, like we are here, I think the highest creativity, we'll call it, is 0.9. So their question is about colorful socks. What's a good name for a company? Let's run that. And what's happening is we're grabbing the large language model, and then we're assigning this bit of text here to this. We're putting this as an input to the model, and then we get the response. So that's what's happening. So I'll just run this example. Socktivation. All right, you could also do the same thing by just putting in, text here. So we're not even using this anymore. We could say, what's a good name for a guitar company that makes pink guitars? Run that. Okay, pink strum guitars. So when we come back next, we're actually going to look how we can prompt. That's going to be very important going forward. That's probably the most important thing about using these large language models. So this is going to be a bit of an introduction to that, but just keep in mind that this is going to be something that's critical to working with these models moving forward. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how we can actually prompt our large language model. So right now what we've got is basically a way to interact with OpenAI, and you can do that right on the OpenAI website. The cool thing about LangChain is that it allows us to set up a prompt so we don't have to write out what's a good name for a company, for example. It can just be an input of colorful socks or pink guitars. If you're iterating over documents, for example, you may not want the user to have to type out, find this document in this list of documents. All they have to do is put in a name or something like that, or a document title or what have you. That's the idea of prompts, and there's actually companies that hire just prompt engineers, people that build these prompts. So you can kind of get the idea how important this is. So let's head over to LangChain here. We've done all that. We'll grab that. I'm going to paste that in here. I'm going to comment out from our previous video this line because we don't want to run that again. And then what I'll do is this import here, I'm going to move it up to the top. And then print stuff here. So I'll grab that. I can just click that, I guess. And then come down here and paste that in. So if we run this right now, we're not actually getting any kind of interaction happening with the large language model. There's other models besides OpenAI, and they're free. But for this introduction series, I thought OpenAI would be the quickest, easiest one to use. So we're not using the model at all here. We're just set up a prompt. That's it. So let's run this. And we're getting what we expected. What is a good name for a company that makes, and then we're passing in this variable here of product. Product is equal to colorful socks, right? So we could say here dogs, and if we run that again, we get colorful dogs. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to take our prompt and pass that into the language model. So this is where things start to get kind of interesting. So we've already got our prompt set up, we've imported it, etc. This is all done. What we want to do next is import this thing called a chain, so where the name LangChain, I guess, comes from, but is a way to chain together the large language model with the prompt, okay? So let's copy that, head back over here. I'm just going to paste that in there. We're importing the chain here, the LLM chain. Let's put that up there, and then we're calling it here. So these happen to be named the same thing here, but for example, we could call this prompt LLM, and we can call this Lang model, like that. And then here we would have to actually change that up, right? To Lang model, and this to prompt LLM. Let me grab this here and move it down. And in order to run this, what we've got to do is change this up to run this now. So we're going to say chain run, and we're passing in our product still. But now the cool thing is we're going to get some output from our language model up here, right? So let's run this and see what happens. Colorful canines. Okay, so we're passing this in. We're passing in the user input, and then we're getting back colorful canines. Another cool thing that you can do with these chains is you can set this to verbose equals true, and then you can see the actual prompt getting run. So let me run this here, entering the chain, prompt after formatting, here's what's going in, finish the chain, and we get rainbow pups. Now, I also want to show you about these templates, what else we can do here. Very simply, like this is already a pretty cool app, right? You could have this on your website, company name or whatever, you know? But let's do this. Let's change this to, I don't know, let's just call it input. And then what we got to do, now I'm going to run this just to show you how this is all working. We're going to get an error here because these variables don't match up. So it actually says mismatched or missing parameters for product, right? So these have to be the same thing, right? So that, and then here, this is now going to be called input, all right? So if we run that again, I just want to walk through this with you. We get the same question, Rainbow Puppies Co. Okay, but what if we start changing this up a little bit and we come up here and say something like that. This could be, described better, but now let's come down here and say, what is the name of the Canadian Prime Minister? Okay, let's run that. All right, Justin Timberlake. Get it? All right, so you can see how we can actually add some personality to the language model using these prompts. And I was actually going to demonstrate like a dating kind of thing, but I thought, that might be too risky for this type of thing. I don't know. But, like a flirtatious kind of AI bot. Yeah, it's just, you can do all kinds of neat stuff with this. So if you go to ChatGPT, for example, and ask it what the day is today, well, let's try it right now. Let's just, in a business style of writing. So we'll say here, what is today's date? Today is October 7th, 2019. Right? We know that's not true. It's 2023. So now we're starting to demonstrate some of the failings of these large language models, but we've got tools that we can use to get around this. All right, we'll be back and we'll start taking a look at that. All right, guys, so where we left off is we were asking about the date, and these large language models are not up to date as far as, current events, right? They get fed this information, a bunch of information, and then they can answer questions based on the information that they have, but they can't really interact with the current world. So what we're going to do is take a look here at something called SERP API. You can see here's my key and stuff. So I'm going to put this link into, here we go, in here, and then you guys can go set up a key. It's free. I think you get 100 requests a day. What we're going to do then is go into our secret file and then set up a constant here, SERP API, and we'll say that equals to quotations, and then what we'll do is grab the key, and I'll put that back in here. We want to actually import that now into our main file here. From secret, import this, and then we're going to put a comma and then SERP API. We want to also do this line again here, and this is going to be equal to SERP API. Now this part has to change. Let's take a look here at what they got going on. Okay, they don't really show us. What I mean is I don't know what variable this is going to be looking for. So let's try SERP API key. So we'll just change this OpenAI part here to SERP. And let's come down here now and grab this. That. And then also we're going to have to run this command here. So I'm going to throw this in the, it's a pip install. I'll put this in here for us as well. So a pip install, so let's run that. I've already done it, but I'll just run it again here. So pip install Google search results. Satisfied on my end, but that'll just take a second to run through. And then if we go back to our main, let's grab this. Come down here, I'm going to comment this part out. And then instead of saying chain.run, we're not calling the model, we're just going to call the search. So we'll say search run. And we'll hit that. See what happens. It didn't find the key, so SERP API under, okay, so it does tell us what it needs. That's kind of cool. That's what I mean. I didn't know what it was looking for, right? Like SERP, what did I call it? Yeah, SERP API. So let's change that to that. There we go. And then this is what we named it in our secret, so we should be good to go here now. Let's try that. Query. Okay, so this is the positional argument. It doesn't take this as a positional argument. This is kind of what can be confusing about using this library right now. We could change this to query. Let's try that. I think we could. And then let's try that out and see what we get here now. Yeah, so that worked. I think we could actually just take this right out too. If you just, it's just going to know, right? So we'll take that out. What is today's date? We'll run that again. Yeah. And so we can ask it, you know, anything we want. So we're using a search engine. It's not that exciting yet, but I just wanted to show you now we are using, we call this, I guess, a tool, right? A tool that can go along with our large language model. We're going to see how to set that up coming up in the next section.